For the last 2 years, you may have seen many articles and televised news broadcasts addressing the conflict going on in the Ukraine. Today I'll be explaining that this conflict has actually been an ongoing process for over 150 years. In 1853, the Russian Empire tried to take over many of the lands that were a part of what used to be the Ottoman Empire. Most of the Ukraine, including the Crimean Peninsula, was a part of this territory. Crimea may be a familiar term to you because it is still the area in the Ukraine that has the most conflict because of its strategic importance. The city of Sevastopol in the Crimean Peninsula holds the only warm water port available to Russia on its western border. In the Crimean War, this was the area that was most highly sought after by the Russians, and it was also the area that was most vigorously defended by the opposing forces. Because England and France both saw the risk in allowing Russia to conquer this area, they both decided to assist the Ottoman Empire in order to keep the Russian Empire from becoming too powerful and posing even more of a threat to its western neighbors. After the deaths of over 500,000 soldiers, the Ottomans won the war because of the assistance it received from the British and the French. But this was only the beginning of the tug-rope competition for Ukraine between East and West. After World War I, Ukraine gained its independence but was bogged down with several wars, including powers from both Europe and also the newly formed Soviet Union. Ukraine was eventually taken over by the Soviet Union, but actually experienced a brief period of stability. After Stalin came to power, things changed drastically for the Ukraine. Because of the new policies imposed by Stalin, millions of Ukrainians either starved to death or were deported to Central Asia. At the same time, Stalin decided to transplant many ethnic Russians into the Ukraine, especially into the tactically important Crimean Peninsula. This was the start of the eastern part of the Ukraine identifying itself more with Russia. This is also where the animosity towards Russia for many Ukrainians began. You could imagine that with the memory of these events still in the minds of Ukrainians, that there would be a natural urge to want to sever its ties with Russia and seek to build stronger relationships with the West. After the fall of the Soviet Union, Ukraine once again achieved independence. But because of the large amount of ethnic Russians, and the eastern part of Ukraine mainly speaking Russian, they held closer ties to Russia than other former Soviet republics. However, politically, the nation was split between leaders that wanted to continue their close ties with Russia and those that wanted to separate themselves from Russia and align themselves more with Europe. After a pro-Russian politician was elected in 2004, many people believed that the results were rigged and that the opposition leader, Viktor Yushchenko, who supported building ties with the European Union, should have actually won the election. There was protests and riots that resulted in the death of many Ukrainians, which led to the eventual takeover of the government by Ukrainian nationals that wanted to restructure a more democratic nation that would build a stronger relationship with the West. After the takeover, the people of Crimea sought to separate itself from Ukraine in order to continue its close relationship with Russia. The Russian leader, Vladimir Putin, of course, was very favorable to this because it would allow Russia to continue its use of the Crimean Peninsula for military purposes. And if they were able to annex the Crimea, it would expand Russia westward. Although it was denied by the Russian government, there is strong evidence to the support that Russia assisted the pro-Russian radicals with weapons and soldiers in eastern Ukraine. Under the guise of claiming to protect ethnic Russians, Putin also sent 6,000 troops into the Crimean Peninsula. However, it is believed that this was mostly just to secure Russia's ability to continue using Sevastopol as a military installation. While the outcome of the crisis has yet to be determined, it is logical to assume that the Ukraine, and specifically the Crimean Peninsula, will continue to be an area of conflict as long as the relationship between East and West continues to be one of tension and distrust. I hope that this brief analysis of the history of the conflict in Ukraine has given you a broadened understanding of the issues behind the crisis. Thank you.